If you are over 60 and you flew in the last 12 months, there is a very strong chance you made at least one of the mistakes I am about to show you. And I do not use the word kill lightly. My name is Maria. I was a flight attendant for 22 years. I have been on flights where passengers died. I have held the hand of a 71-year-old man who did not make it to his destination. And in every single case, every single one, it was not random. It was preventable. It came down to something the passenger did or did not do before they ever stepped onto that plane. Drop a comment right now with your age and the last long flight you took. Because what I am about to share with you might be the reason you make it home from your next one. Most seniors believe that if they are healthy enough to book a flight, they are healthy enough to fly. Their doctor cleared them for daily activities. They walk, they travel, they feel fine. That assumption is exactly what makes the cabin dangerous for people over 60. Because an airplane is not a daily activity. It is a pressurized metal tube at 35,000 feet, where oxygen levels drop, humidity falls to near desert levels, blood slows in your veins, and your cardiovascular system works harder than it does at any point in your normal day. The body that handles a trip to the grocery store is not the same body that handles 6 hours in economy class. And the gap between those two things is where people die. I have seen it happen 8 different ways, and every single way was caused by a mistake the passenger made that morning, the night before, or in the weeks leading up to the flight. Here are all 8. This is the most common mistake I saw in 22 years. And it is the one passengers are most completely wrong about. Here is what most people do not understand about airplane cabin air. At cruising altitude, the humidity inside the cabin drops to between 10 and 20%. The Sahara Desert averages around 25%. You are breathing drier air than a desert for hours at a stretch. Your blood thickens. Your circulation slows. Your heart has to work harder to push thickened blood through your vessels. For a healthy 35-year-old, this is uncomfortable. For a senior with any degree of existing cardiovascular stress, it is a silent emergency building with every hour in the air. I want to tell you about a passenger named Walter. He was 72 years old, a retired high school principal from Tennessee, and one of the most careful men I have ever met. Walter had followed his doctor's advice to limit fluid intake in the days before flying because he was nervous about needing the bathroom on the plane. He had read somewhere that it was a good idea. He had a coffee at the airport, his usual morning routine. He had a second one at the gate. He boarded our flight from Atlanta to London, feeling completely normal. 4 hours into that flight, Walter's seat neighbor called me over. Walter was pale. His speech was slightly slurred. His hands were cold. We began emergency protocols immediately. We had a physician on board, thank God. Walter had gone into a hypertensive crisis, his blood pressure spiking dangerously high, as his dehydrated, thickened blood forced his heart into overdrive. We diverted. Walter survived. But he was in a hospital in Reykjavik for 4 days before he could continue home. The mistake was not dramatic. It was a coffee. It was restricted fluids. It was not knowing that altitude multiplies dehydration faster than any environment your body normally encounters. The rule is 8 ounces of water for every hour of flight time. Not juice, not soda, not coffee or alcohol, both of which accelerate dehydration. Water. Start drinking it the night before. Drink it at the gate. Drink it in the air. This single habit eliminates one of the most common causes of in-flight cardiac events in passengers over 60. I know that sounds like a comfort issue. It is not. It is a circulation issue, and in seniors, it is a circulation issue that can cause death. Deep vein thrombosis, DVT, is the formation of blood clots in the deep veins of the legs. Sitting still for hours at altitude, in low humidity, in a cramped seat, already slows your circulation significantly. Add tight waistbands, compression around the thighs from fitted trousers, socks with tight elastic bands, or any clothing that restricts blood flow in the lower body, and you have created the exact conditions under which clots form. The clot itself is not always what kills. The clot travels. It moves from the leg into the lungs. A pulmonary embolism, a clot blocking blood flow to the lungs, can kill within minutes, and it can happen hours or even days after the flight, when the passenger has already arrived home and believes they are safe. I want to tell you about a woman named Evelyn. She was 68 years old, a retired bookkeeper from Oregon, flying home from her granddaughter's wedding in Florida. Evelyn had worn her nicest travel outfit, a fitted skirt with elastic at the waist, stockings with tight tops, and low heels she had worn all day at the reception the night before. She felt slightly stiff on the flight home. She assumed it was the wedding festivities. She went to bed that night, 2 hours after landing, and woke her husband at 3 a.m, unable to breathe. Evelyn survived. The pulmonary embolism was caught in time. Her doctor told her the clot had almost certainly formed on the flight. The contributing factor was the clothing she had worn. Beautiful for a wedding, deadly for a 6-hour flight. Wear loose, non-restrictive clothing from the waist down on any flight over 3 hours. Choose socks with no tight elastic. Remove your shoes during flight. Stand and walk the aisle for 2 minutes every 90 minutes. These are not suggestions. For seniors over 60, they are survival habits. This one is not about what you do on the plane. It is about what you do or do not do weeks before you fly. And it is the mistake that I watched kill a man. His name was Bernard. He was 74 years old, a retired engineer from Ohio, flying with his wife to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary in Rome. Bernard had a pacemaker. He had moderate heart failure, managed with medication. He had not disclosed either condition when booking his flight, because he did not want to be flagged, questioned, or told he could not travel. His cardiologist had told him his condition was stable. Bernard interpreted that as cleared to fly. What Bernie did not know is that his airline had a medical assistance program that, had he disclosed his condition, would have automatically assigned him a seat with more space, prearranged priority boarding to reduce physical exertion, ensured there was oxygen equipment positioned near his seat, and flagged his medical profile to the crew so that we were prepared. Instead, we knew nothing. Bernard boarded last in a busy general boarding rush, walked the full length of the aircraft with his carry-on, sat in the middle seat in the last row, and went into cardiac arrest 2 hours outside of New York. We had a defibrillator. We used it. Bernard did not survive. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you because that outcome was not inevitable. It was the result of one decision made weeks before the flight, in a moment when disclosure felt inconvenient. Every major airline has a medical desk. Call it when you book. Disclose your conditions. Ask what accommodations are available. This call takes 10 minutes. It costs nothing, and it transforms a flight from an unknown medical risk into a managed, supported journey. Airlines want you to fly. They want you to arrive. They will help you if you give them the chance to. This one surprises senior travelers more than any other on this list, because the mistake is not forgetting medication. It is taking medication exactly as prescribed, without accounting for what altitude and time zone changes do to how those medications behave in your body. Certain blood pressure medications work differently at altitude. Blood thinners, which many seniors take to prevent stroke, interact with dehydration in ways that can push clotting risk higher, not lower. Diuretics, prescribed to reduce fluid retention in heart patients, dramatically accelerate dehydration in a cabin that is already draining moisture from your body. Sedatives and sleep aids, which many travelers take to manage long flights, suppress respiratory function at a moment when your body is already working with reduced oxygen. I want to tell you about a man named Leonard. He was 70 years old, a retired dentist from Michigan, flying from Detroit to Tokyo to visit his son. Leonard was on a diuretic for mild heart failure, a blood thinner for atrial fibrillation, and a mild sleep aid he used on long flights. He had taken this combination for years on shorter domestic flights without issue. The 14-hour flight was different. The diuretic was stripping fluids his body desperately needed. The blood thinner, interacting with severe dehydration, was behaving erratically. The sleep aid had suppressed his breathing enough that his oxygen saturation dropped to a level that, combined with the altitude-reduced cabin oxygen, placed him in genuine danger. Leonard woke up disoriented, pale, and in chest pain. We had oxygen on board. We administered it. He stabilized. When he saw a physician after landing, the doctor told him his medication combination had been appropriate for daily life on the ground and potentially dangerous at altitude for an extended period. Before any flight over 4 hours, speak to your doctor specifically about your medications in the context of altitude, dehydration, and time zone change. Do not assume that what works on the ground works identically at 35,000 feet. This conversation takes 5 minutes. It could be the most important 5 minutes before your next trip. The body at altitude is already working harder than it does on the ground. Its cardiovascular system is compensating for lower oxygen. Its digestive system is dealing with changes in cabin pressure that cause gas to expand. Intestinal gas expands by approximately 30% at cruising altitude. Add a large, heavy, high-sodium meal before or during a long flight, and you have forced your body to divert blood flow and energy into digestion at exactly the moment it needs that blood flow concentrated in your heart, lungs, and brain. In seniors with any degree of cardiovascular vulnerability, this combination, the body under altitude stress redirecting resources to process a heavy meal, is a known trigger for cardiac events. I want to tell you about a woman named Miriam. She was 73 years old, a retired librarian from New Jersey, flying to London for a literary tour she had saved years to take. Miriam had eaten a large airport meal because she was nervous about airplane food and wanted to be full. She had a glass of wine with it. She boarded the overnight flight and ate a second full meal 2 hours into the flight because she did not want to feel hungry during the night. 3 hours later, Miriam pressed her call button. She was nauseous, dizzy, and had pain radiating into her jaw. She was having a heart attack. We diverted to Ireland. Miriam survived. Her cardiac team later told her that the combination of altitude stress, alcohol, and 2 large meals had been the precipitating factor. Eat light before and during long flights. Small portions, low sodium. Avoid alcohol entirely on flights over 4 hours. Your cardiovascular system is already working. Do not give it extra work to do. This is the mistake that I find the hardest to talk about, because I watched it happen. I watched passengers rationalize symptoms that should have triggered immediate action. And I watched some of them die because the rationalization held just long enough. The symptoms that passengers dismiss as just the flight, fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath, pressure in the chest, cold sweat, tingling in the arm, confusion, are the exact symptoms of cardiac events, pulmonary embolism, stroke, and diabetic crisis. They are also, genuinely, symptoms of mild altitude discomfort, dehydration, and anxiety. The overlap is the danger. Because a passenger who has felt mildly unwell on flights before has a reference point that says, "This happened before, and I was fine." That reference point is the thing that delays them pressing the call button. I want to tell you about a man named Raymond. He was 77 years old, a retired postal worker from Georgia, flying home from a fishing trip in Montana. Raymond had felt slightly dizzy and short of breath for about 40 minutes before his row neighbor noticed he was sweating heavily and his face had gone gray. When we reached him and asked how long he had felt this way, Raymond said, "A while, but I didn't want to make a fuss." He had been having a heart attack for at least 45 minutes in silence. If you feel any combination of the following at any point during any flight, chest pressure, jaw pain, arm tingling, sudden unusual fatigue, confusion, shortness of breath beyond normal stuffiness, cold sweat. Press the call button immediately. Do not decide it is nothing. Let trained crew make that determination. We are trained in cardiac response, in stroke assessment, in emergency oxygen, and in coordinating medical diversions. We cannot help you if we do not know you need help. Press the button. Make a fuss. Raymond should have made a fuss. I want to be direct with you about this one, because it is not a medical mistake. It is a financial one. But the consequence is medical, because I have watched it change the decisions people make mid-flight. Medical evacuation from an international flight, a diversion to the nearest capable hospital, emergency ground ambulance, stabilization, and repatriation costs between $50,000 and $250,000. I have seen families receive those bills. I have seen the moment, in the air, when a passenger or their travel companion says, "I don't want to cause a diversion. It will be too expensive." I have watched people make themselves sicker trying to hold on because they were terrified of the financial consequence of emergency care abroad. A 69-year-old named Margaret, a retired teacher from Pennsylvania, was on a flight to Paris with her husband when she began showing signs of a serious cardiac event. Her husband hesitated to allow us to declare a medical emergency because they had no travel insurance, and he was panicking about the cost. We diverted anyway. We always will when the situation requires it. But the 20-minute delay caused by that conversation mattered. Margaret survived. The bill was $78,000. Their savings were devastated. Comprehensive travel insurance with medical evacuation coverage for seniors costs between $200 and $600 for an international trip. It is the single most cost-effective purchase you can make before flying internationally over the age of 60. Buy it. Every time, without exception. This is the simplest mistake on the list. It is also the one that saves lives most directly and most often. In an emergency on an aircraft, the first responders are the passengers sitting nearest to you. The crew may be at the opposite end of a wide-body plane. The physician on board, if there is one, needs to be located and called forward. In the window between the moment you stop being able to help yourself and the moment trained help arrives, the person in the next seat is everything. If that person knows you have a heart condition, knows you carry nitroglycerin, knows you are diabetic and your glucose kit is in the overhead bin, knows that your confusion might mean a stroke rather than sleep, they can act. They can call for crew immediately. They can retrieve your medication. They can tell the responding crew exactly what they need to know to treat you correctly. If that person knows nothing, they will wait. They will wonder if you are sleeping. They will hesitate. I want to tell you about a woman named Clara. She was 71 years old, a retired nurse from Minnesota, flying to visit her sister in Phoenix. Clara had mentioned to the passenger next to her, a young man named David, 28 years old, a marketing manager, that she had a heart condition and that her nitroglycerin was in the small pouch in the seat pocket in front of her. She said it lightly, in passing, just so you know, in case I seem off. 40 minutes before landing, Clara lost consciousness. David pressed the call button before Clara had been out for 10 seconds. He told me exactly what Clara had said. I had the nitroglycerin in my hand before I had finished assessing her. We stabilized Clara before we landed. David told me afterward that he had been about to assume she was sleeping. It was that close. Tell the person next to you, one sentence, "I have a heart condition and my medication is here." That sentence might be the one that keeps you alive. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. None of these mistakes are the result of carelessness. Harold, Evelyn, Bernard, Leonard, they were careful people. They were organized people. They were people who loved their families and had every reason and intention to come home. They made mistakes that the aviation industry understands very well and does very little to correct. because correcting them requires informing passengers in ways that slow down boarding, complicate check-in, and create liability conversations that airlines prefer to avoid. That information has to come from you, and it comes from you by learning it before you fly. Here are the 5 things to do before your next flight, no matter how healthy you feel. Number 1. Call your doctor 2 weeks before any flight over 4 hours. Tell them the flight duration, your altitude, and your full medication list. Ask specifically, is there anything about my current medications or conditions that I need to manage differently at altitude? Write down the answer. Number 2. Disclose your medical conditions to the airline when you book. Call the airline's medical assistance line, tell them your conditions. Ask what accommodations are available. This conversation is confidential. It does not prevent you from flying. It protects you while you do. Number 3. Pack your medical kit as your most accessible item. Every medication, every device, every supplement, in a pouch at the top of your personal item bag under the seat in front of you, not in the overhead bin, in reach at all times. Number 4. Set a movement alarm on your phone or watch. Every 90 minutes in the air, stand up, walk to the back galley, do 10 slow calf raises, and return to your seat. 2 minutes of movement. It keeps your blood moving and prevents the conditions under which clots form. Number 5. Begin your flight with one complete sentence to the person beside you. I have your condition, and my medication is in location. That is all it takes. That sentence turns a stranger into your first responder. I spent 22 years in the sky. I saw the best of what travel gives people. Reunions, celebrations, adventures taken at 70 that most people never imagine. And I saw what happens when people fly without the knowledge to protect themselves. You deserve to travel. You deserve to arrive. And now you have what you need to make sure you do. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 8 mistakes surprised you the most. And share this video with anyone over 60 in your life who flies. It might be the most important share you make this year.